Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, Your Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Your Excellency President Mohamed Sheikh El Ghazouani, Your Excellency President Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, Your Excellency President Chapeau, Your Excellency President Mamadi Doumbouya, Your Excellency Vice President Ndabago Adlai, Prime Minister of Côte d'Ivoire Robert Begré-Mabé, distinguished guests, business leaders, ministers. It's an honor to return to Kigali, His Excellency President Paul Kagame and the people of Rwanda. Thank you for this extraordinary welcome. Kigali commands attention not only of what others say, but because of what it achieves, a vision rendered in concrete reality. I would like to thank our co-hosts, Jeune Afrique and Hamid Ben Ahmed, for the work I've been doing together for the past years. If you allow me, I would like to recognize someone that I'm proud to call a long-standing brother, Sidi Ould-Tah, President of the African Development Bank. Sidi. Sidi Ould-Tah, across Mission 300, infrastructure corridors, capital mobilization for our continent's most fragile economy, we stand on the same front lines, waging the same battle. Our partnership is not protocol. It's a strategic imperative of two African brothers, of two institutions who care for development. I'm honored, Sidi, to count you as a both partner and a brother in arms. Thank you. Shukran. We gather at a moment of profound global disruption. Conflicts spreading across multiple regions are not abstract events. They strike our economies directly. Food costs are surging, foreign reserves depleted, debt escalating, capital withdrawing. These shocks underscore with an urgency impossible to dismiss one essential truth. There is no sustainable development without sound macroeconomic foundation. Resilience is not assembled during a crisis, it's forged before one arrives, through fiscal discipline and other instruments that we know. The nation best equipped to absorb today's shock are those who have the discipline to lay those foundations when conditions allowed. Yet, through all this turbulence, one reality has never been sharper. Emerging markets are no longer the margin of the global system. They are its engine. Sub-Saharan Africa represents 60% of the world population, under 25. Within a generation, 1 in 3 workers on this planet will be African, 1 out of 3. And we know the sources of jobs. 9 in 10 are generated by the private sector in developing countries. The question before us is therefore direct and pressing. Can we link African talent, its capital, its market into engines of employment and at which scale? World Bank President Ajebanga has anchored the World Bank Group strategy around 5 priorities. Those 5 priorities come from his consultation with the head of states. These 5 sectors are engines of structural transformation capable of absorbing the vast cohort of young people entering the labor force. These are equally the defining pillars of what IFC is doing in Africa. Let me just break it down quickly for you. Energy and infrastructure. No economy industrialized without dependable power. Through Mission 300, we are committed to bringing electricity to 300 million Africans through regional grids, mini-grids, off-grid systems, and with private capital at the center of it. We need integrated energy markets that keep the light on. These are also important for economic development. We need to accelerate the participation in transmission. This is the next frontier. We are seeing a lot of people investing in generation, but the private sector doesn't access investment in transmission, which will be critical. But we need to do it with all sorts of energy. And I would like to thank and once again congratulate Rwanda for taking the leadership in diversifying the source of energy for the continent, with including nuclear as an option for African countries. Thank you for the leadership, Mr. President. Agriculture, Africa holds 60% of the world untapped arable land. Global food demand will rise by 50% over the next 3 decades. Through AgriConnect, we are channeling private sector capital money into agriculture value chain, and this from input to processing through a logistic and market access. When agriculture shifts from subsistence production to integrated chains, it generates unemployment throughout the value chain, anchor natural economies, and feed downstream industries. The goal is income resilience and job at scale. Let me turn about something which is important because it's shaped a lot of our economic history in the continent. Corridors and connectivity. Africa corridors were largely built during the colonial period for a single objective: extract commodities and move them to the coast and transform with no industrial dividend for local populations. That logic must be buried. The Lopito Corridor, Simandu, this initiative carry a different vision. A corridor that carries raw ore generates handling work. A corridor that carries processed steel, manufactured goods, generate industry, transport agricultural product, transform agricultural product is development. This section is important. It's a decision, and we need to build on it. Corridors are not only to export raw material for Africa. They are here to create jobs and make our economy more resilient. Healthcare, human capital, and skill. Investing in health means investing in the most elemental input of any economy. Africa's health systems are underfunded and heavily reliant on imports. The private sector has a transformative part to play. Community clinics, telemedicine, local pharmaceutical production. If I want to be frank, something we do not say enough is that a healthy workforce is only as productive as a skilled workforce. And I remember vividly during the crisis of COVID, our President Kagame gathered the leadership here to ensure that there is independence in the production of vaccine needed for our population. Thank you for all the leaders here who have been showing that Africa can take things in their hand when they need to have it. But I would like to say something about vocational and technical education. These are essential elements to development as well as digital literacy and entrepreneurship. These are the foundation, I would say the infrastructure of human capital, and must command the same urgency as road and power lines. Let's talk now about something which is important also: critical mineral and value-added manufacturing and small AI. Africa cannot continue shipping raw materials only to repurchase them as finished goods at a premium. Cobalt, lithium, manganese, graphite. Africa critical mineral situates this continent at the center of the global energy transition. Our collective obligation is to ensure that strategic position yields local wealth and industrial employment, not merely extractive income. This is a matter of sovereignty. But the conclusion, the discussion on critical mineral may be joined by a discussion on artificial intelligence. What I call small AI, precision, context-specific application built to address concrete African realities. AI tools that help a smallholder farmer in the Sahel identify the optimal planting windows. An AI system that allows a district clinic to detect malaria faster and more reliably. An AI model trained on local languages, local data, local conditions. These are not distant aspirations. They are deployable today and represent a remarkable opportunity to compress decades of development in sector where we have historically lagged. The mineral powering global AI hardware lies largely beneath African soil. It would be a historic failure of imagination if Africa provided the raw inputs for the AI revolution while remaining a consumer rather than a co-architect of its rewards. Small AI is our portal into that future, and we must step through it. Now talking about our private sector in Africa, the SMEs, the regional champion, the African capital market. In Africa, jobs are created by small and medium enterprises, and we don't talk about it enough. These first and second generation family enterprises that I saw in Guinea, in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, in East Africa, they are providing jobs and livelihood for our youth, rich communities that large corporations cannot reach. They rely on them to reach those communities. These futures hinge on one condition: integration into national, regional, and international value chain. The African Free Trade Agreement provides a legal architecture, 49 ratification, but the agreements do not generate employment. Transactions do. For this framework to become economic reality, businesses must be able to trade, finance, insure, and export across borders, efficiently, affordably, and without bureaucratic obstacle at every crossing. To cultivate regional champions, two conditions are not negotiable. First, dismantle every barrier to cross-border investment, whether direct or through equity markets. Capital transfer restriction, double taxation, regulatory fragmentation, stock exchange incompatibilities, these are policy choices, not economic laws. They can be reversed, and they must be reversed. Second, Africa's great national enterprises must open their ownership to African savings. African pension funds, sovereign wealth funds administer hundreds of billions of dollars. That capital exists. What is absent is the infrastructure to deploy it across borders into productive enterprises at continental scale. When companies list or open tranches to local institutional investors, they retain savings that currently drain our continent. The exchanges of Casablanca, Lagos, Nairobi, Abidjan, Kigali, or Joburg have an indispensable role. African savings must finance African growth. These SMEs face four structural obstacles we can no longer set aside: insufficient equity capital, with banks insisting on collateral these enterprises cannot furnish; a governance gap, as formalization requires deep transformation in management and planning; regulatory environment that penalize SME disproportionately; and finally, the generational transfer of wealth. The silent crisis of African entrepreneurship, past the second or third generation, the overwhelming of African family business vanish. This is not merely a family loss. It's an hemorrhage of economic capital, institutional memory, and employment that reverberates across the entire community. I direct an ambitious appeal to researchers, sociologists, business schools, and African international alike. Treat these as a serious domain of inquiry and research. The roots are as sociological as they are financial, family structure, inheritance norms, succession disputes. These dynamics must be embedded in our business school curricula so that the next generation inherits not just the enterprises, but the capacity to sustain them. I want to say that our institution, IFC, will be transforming. We will be increasing our ability to mobilize international capital, and domestic capital to address all these challenges. And the local champion for us are at the heart of our initiative. We have mobilized and invested $14 billion in 2025 in Africa, and we will continue doing that and accelerate that path. So now, let me conclude by saying the following. The talent is here, the capital exists, the ambition in this room is undeniable. What has been missing is execution at scale. The kind of scale that turned energy into factories, factories into jobs, and local enterprises into continental champions. This decade must be the one where Africa stops exporting its potential and starts delivering its performance. I need three things. First, commitment and concrete. Not a letter of intent, not another memorandum that collects dust in a drawer, an investment decision, a structured partnership, a first disbursement before the year is out. The time for deliberation is behind us. The time of action is now. Push back on us. Push back on us. If IFC, the institutions that I lead, is not making it easy enough for you to enter a market, tell us. If our financial structure are too rigid, say so, and say it loudly. We are here to adapt to your reality, not the other way around. Our value is not being right. Our value is being useful. Let's play it on the long game. Emerging markets reward conviction and patience. Every investor who has built a durable position in Africa is one who refuses to retreat when volatility strikes. So let me say a last sentence before I end. Africa has never lacked potential. It has never lacked vision. What has too often been missing is a collective will to act. Together, now, without waiting for permission from history, that changes today. The arc bends not because the world wills it, but because we do. Africa is not a frontier market waiting to be discovered. This is a defining growth story of the 21st century. The question is no longer whether Africa can deliver at scale. The question is whether we will have the courage together to rise to the scale this moment demands. Thank you.